Hi, everyone. We're on chapter 19 of The River. Brian and Derek have been on the river for a little bit. Brian fell asleep. He just got exhausted from paddling and ended up in the middle of the lake. Not the lake they started off in, but another lake. And managed to get himself back into the stream current. And that's where we're picking up at the beginning of chapter 19. With the arrival of good light, Brian took the map out and spread it on the briefcase. The lake he had crossed did not show. He was positive. There were lakes, some large and small, but he was not moving fast enough to have reached any of them yet, and that meant that the map was not accurate. It showed clean river with narrow banks where he guessed the lake to be, and if it was inaccurate about this one thing, it might be inaccurate about all things. Say the distance to the trading post. If the map had been made many years before and not updated, then the river might have changed direction, might not even go by the trading post any longer. The trading post might not even be there. The thought stunned him, and he realized how foolish it had been to leave the lake and trust the map. There were so many variables, so many ways to go wrong. He studied the map again and took some heart from it. It was so definite. It must be basically right. Close. Things could change, but not that much. The river was probably up a bit, and the lake had come through in the night, was a low place that filled when the river ran high, and not really a permanent lake that would be on the map. Sure, there was logic there. All right. All he had to do was test the map, find some way to ensure that it was mostly right. He put his finger on the river and followed it, tracing the path as the blue line cut through the green, followed to where he thought he must be. There. If the map was right, and he was guessing right, he should be about where his finger had stopped. It had showed a long, straight stretch, and the contour lines were spread far apart, which would indicate a large, low or flat area where there might be a lake. Better yet, in a short distance, less than 2 miles, the contour lines came closer and closer together and showed 2 hills, one on either side of the river, just after a sharp S-turn. The raft was moving well now, and the morning sun was cutting away some of the ache and the tiredness of the night. He put the map back in the briefcase and checked on Derek. His face was swollen from mosquitoes in the night, his eyes puffy and shut, and Brian used his t-shirt to wipe cool water on Derek's face. He rinsed it in the river and dampened Derek's mouth with fresh, clean water. He wasn't sure if his eyes were being tricked or if it was real, but Derek looked thinner to him, and he wondered if getting thinner was a sign of dehydration. He dampened the t-shirt once more and put it over Derek's head. If he stays cool, Brian thought, cool and moist, it might help. If I can keep him out of the sun. If the raft had a canopy, a cover, it would help. He paddled to the shore and jammed the raft into some willows and grass. It took him a half hour to use some green willows and swatches of grass to arrange a crude awning over Derek. It didn't cover the whole man, but it kept most of him in the shade, and when it was done, Brian pushed the raft back out in the current and started moving again. He watched for the hills. Hunger came with the morning, and he started thinking about food. Cereal and milk, toast and bacon, fried eggs. The smells of breakfast seemed to hang over the raft. It bothered him, but it was an old friend/enemy. He made himself quit thinking of food, thought instead of what to do, planning each move of the day. Get a firm location, figure his speed, keep moving, a step at a time. Time was so strange. It didn't mean anything. Then it meant everything. It was like food. When he didn't have it, he wanted it. When there was plenty of it, he didn't care about it. He stretched, sighed. If we were in a canoe and had a lunch and a cooler full of pop, we'd think this was the most beautiful place in the world. And it was, he thought, truly beautiful. The trees, pines and spruce and cedars towered so high they made the river seem to become narrow, and in places where the bank was cut away by the moving water, the trees had actually leaned over until they were almost touching the water. They made the river seem like a soft green tunnel. The character of the river had changed. It happened almost suddenly, with such a natural flow that Brian didn't notice it for a short time. The trees grew closer, the brush thicker, and the banks higher. Where they had been where they had been grassy and sloping away, gradually the banks were steeper and cut away, exposing the dirt and the mud. The trees were so close and high that Brian would not be able to see the hills on the map when he came to them. He could see nothing but a wall of green. He wiped Derek's face several times. All this time, the raft had kept moving, and when his break was over, he saw they were coming into another bend. He put the t-shirt back on, wet, and picked up the paddle and started to work, swinging the stern of the raft, keeping it in the middle of the current. It would get hot soon and cook him, but he thought it wouldn't matter. His hands were raw from the rough wood of the paddle, and he thought that it wouldn't matter either. All that mattered now was to keep moving.